basically, again, when you think of consciousness, you want to think of the space. The reason because space is out there. It's there. It's a part of our real world. The objects are separated by space. There is an amazing amount of space separating the galaxies and the planets and all these things. So for us, it's easy to understand. But there is a big difference between space and the consciousness. But at least to give an idea what the consciousness is, they give an example of the space. So when we meditate, you think of that space. Because when you think of objects, you don't think of the space. You know, Tao of physics, Tao of Tao Te Ching, it always mentions that when we look at the house and we are so happy and this and that. But it's the utility of the house depends upon the space inside. What if there was no space? All the walls were glued together, then house is not functional. The wheel has a lot of spokes in them. We look at the wheel as an importance of the wheel, but without the spokes, the wheel cannot exist. So we never think of the thing which is actually behind everything. The consciousness is behind everything, but we never think of the consciousness. And that's where the problem is, right? But we know it is there. So physics point of view also, we know the whole universe can be squeezed into one sugar cube. If you take all the space out, is 99.9999% is all space, right? So the space generates all these things, supports while it's out there. It's like a big marshmallow, right? It's all infiltrated by all this space inside, right? Marshmallow or the buddhika ball or all that thing is like so big. The kid, he said, I want to have a candy, so it's a booth for $1 or something, right? But all that is space. It's just, if you really convert it, it's a tiny spoonful of sugar. That's it. So it just created the whole thing. So that's how the space is inflating basically all this material, including the material itself, is all space. So the space is basically infiltrating, covering everything, and support it also. Without, if I take the space away, right, between Deepak and Sangeeta, they are glued together. We all will be glued together.
They will like it.
They will like it. So space also keeps our existence alive. Without space, we cannot exist. Right? So space is very vitally needed, not just within us also, but also without, also between us also, the space is important. So that way you have to think of the consciousness. The consciousness gives rise to all these things, but consciousness is present within us, outside us, everywhere. So it's everywhere, right? But
is the consciousness and space is the same thing?
No, it's not. That's what I'm coming to next. It's not, right? It's just a concept. It's a concept of space that gives rise to give you a little bit hint of the consciousness. But the thing is that space, there is no joy. There is no awareness. Consciousness is much more than just the space. Space is dead. Space cannot create material, right? The material has to have come from somewhere. That energy to create Sat is an additional feature. Say if you take space, right, and you add the Sat part of it, that it has the ability to create something. Now, how would you expect a vacuum to create something? In vacuum, there is nothing there. Millions of years, you cannot create anything out of vacuum. Because vacuum means nothing. Right? From nothingness, nothing can be created. Right? But there is something. There is something more than, it's more than just the vacuum of the space. It's more than that. So there is hidden energy, or whatever you call that. There is a capacity to create. That's a Sat function. Also, once you create something, the pleasure of interacting, you are created, I am created, the awareness is not there. So these are the vital functions we talked about, is Sat, Chit and Anand. And after we interact, all the pleasure we get, all this is built into the consciousness. And that's only scratching the surface, believe me. The Sat, Chit and Anand are just for the ordinary lay people to understand that. And that's what I was reading on Vivekananda. He says, once you become aware of the awareness part and the existence, you exist, I exist, the bucket exists, the computer exists, all that existence is a great function of the consciousness. But not only that, there is awareness also, how we are aware of each other. That awareness is also built. That would not be possible if just two blobs of cement was created and sitting next to it, two blobs of cement sitting next to each other. They don't know each other. They don't ask you, where did you come from? They don't have questions like that. It's just that awareness makes the life interesting. We were traveling in Germany, in Europe, by the Ural, And we had a long journey. We started in Paris and we were going to end up in Rome. It was a long journey and we travel in first class. Nobody travels in first class over there. Everybody goes by second class, right? So we are sitting there. There were 5 of us, me, my parents, and my son, and 4 or 5 of us. And then one gentleman, somebody else, sitting there. And as a shy, I don't get interactive. And it was a long journey. But my mom says, "What country you're from?" And that started the whole thing. We became such a good friends, She broke the ice, Simple English he started. And turned out to be, he was a Jewish guy. He was going to be studying at Florence, and he was going to go on the way to Rome, and then he was going to change the trains and go there. But he gave us so much information because he was there, And he says that we were going to go to Venice, actually. And he says the last thing, because we had open access at that time, like 91 or something. We had not even booked the hotel. So we took the URL to get off the, then you book any hotel and move on. Because hotels were not important. Main thing was traveling, right? So it was easy that way. And the internet and everything was not, the booking even was not that easy and all that. So that's how we were going to, it's the last thing you want to do is get off at Venice. Because as soon as you get off, your concept of normal roads are gone, right? And all of a sudden there is a water everywhere. And then you have to think of water taxi, how to get water taxi, and this and that. He says, get off at Venezia Metro, which is 5 minutes before. It's like a normal land. You go there, you walk over, get it, because of the URL pass, it's all covered. It doesn't really matter. So he gave so many hints. The bottom line is all started with, where are you from? So awareness of ability to interact with each other and curiosity for, all this is consciousness, right? And the fun that we had. The guy, we became such a good friends and we talked a lot. We were there for like 10 hours. So all that enjoyment, these are all because of the consciousness. So where is that space is going to give us all these things? The vacuum? Nothing. But when you want to think of consciousness, they think of space. That's why, just imagine how the space is so important and this and that. Same way, now take that concept and think it at a much bigger level. And then you put into perspective. And then you start realizing the greatness of the consciousness, how it has been able to create the whole world, how it's been able to give you these emotions and ability to interact, all the fun and everything. That's what makes it so alive, and that makes so fun. And it's just, you cherish every single moment that you have, all the pleasures that you had, you hold on to them. Every single flower that you smell, remember that beautiful rose that came out in the morning with the morning dew on it, you keep that picture in the mind because those things are created for you. And I always mention that kwazam cherry, and the cherry that has big clumps, not the regular cherry, the kwazam, the one that blooms a little later. The weeping cherry comes out the first, and that's what all the Washington DC and all that. But the kwazam cherry I enjoy, but these are like big clumps. They're like tiny mini roses all throughout. And I ask people, did you see that? Yeah, I see that. I said, no, did you really see that? What do you mean? I said, well, when I jog, and then when the springtime comes, I sit down underneath that kwazam cherry. And I take a breather, I look at it from the bottom up. From one end of the horizon, all the way to the other end, it's all covered with pink. And there's not even tiny leaves there. It's all pink. And it's not just pink. There are 10 shades of pink. Lighter pink, darker pink, almost to the red, almost to the white, extreme. And the petals are overlapping. And the edges are redder. Center is lighter pink. And all these things. And I said, I hold on to that image. And that gives me pleasure for the whole day. Who knows, even more years. Even when I feel depressed or something, I just think of that. How many beautiful things are out there. So life is to enjoy, the bottom line is, right?
See, that intelligence, Pradeep Bhai,
Yeah.
the intelligence which is manifesting everything, that is consciousness. The central intelligence.
Right. But then awareness and consciousnness is the same thing.
Awareness is a part of consciousness. But like I said, Vivekananda says, once you realize, I was last, our meditation, the guided meditation we talked about was awareness and existence and all that. He says that's the shore of the big ocean to come. Then you have coming to the shore of the ocean. And then you're going to go deep into it. And obviously we have not been there, so we don't know yet. But he has been there. So he says this is just the beginning to realize the awareness and existence are just the two main features, only for the beginners to realize what the big consciousness is about. But that will happen only if you go deeper into meditation. But those are the two things that strikes out, and we can give you an actual example in the real life. Once you get deeper and deeper, you won't be able to talk. You won't be able to explain. There won't be even names for it to explain. How can you explain? Right? Yesterday we were talking about it. We've been running together for several months now, right? I tell you, yesterday I felt so wonderful, and he did the same thing. He didn't text me, I didn't text him, which is very unusual. I was going to text him. I said, Deepak, I feel so great today. And how do you explain this to anyone? You can't.
You can.
There is no way to, only we understand to some extent.
Yeah.
But the feeling that you get after several months of running, and you feel almost close to samadhi, believe me or not.
Ecstasy.
Right? It's just ecstasy. You are in ecstasy. And that's all I can tell.
Yeah.
It's a simple word to explain, but there's much more to it.
Much.
So all these things are basically, not for anybody to share. You just have to do it yourself. That's the only way to do it. So when you see the dream, any aspect of the dream was never not your mind. Your mind was everything. The same way, anything that is happening is never not consciousness. Every single corner of the world, every single thought in the world, every single person in the world, good action, bad action, everything is consciousness. Whatever it is, that immense and that powerful, and it's infinite. So when you realize these are all words, but when you meditate, that's when you start experiencing it. That's when the real fun starts, And it won't start until we spend time to meditate, The next thing is the time. So now, they say the time. We all know the time. Time exists. But does it? It's a concept. We talked about it. Time is a concept. So, obviously, it does exist in our minds. So, does the mind exist? We don't know. And that's what we're trying to reach. Once you reach the end of the mind, that's when Brahma starts. The reality starts. And the mind created time, and mind created the space. Without space, time cannot exist. Space is the distance between earth and the sun. Until I have a distance, I cannot decide one object is moving against. It's all relativity, right? How the rotation of the earth is taking place around the sun, how the earth is rotating around its axis for 24 hours or whatever, and that we call it a day, but it's all in respect to the sun. But if the sun and the earth were not separated, where is the time? They were sticking together. Where is the time? The space is just as important to create the time, and vice versa. So as soon as the space is separated, as soon as the objects are separated and the space is created, time starts ticking. As soon as me and Deepak are separate, oh, you are there, I am here. 2 seconds ago you were there and I was there. So as soon as the space starts, time starts ticking. So again, that's a concept. So time and space is all merged together. But what would it be like to reach to the source of time and space? That's when the Big Bang took place, when the objects were created, all the galaxies were created. Once the objects were created, the space was created. And as soon as the space was created, the time was created. So what would it be like without reaching there to be there? And we are there. The consciousness is, whatever consciousness was there at the time of creation of the Big Bang and the universe was created, is still there now. Whatever has been created actually has never been created. It's again a concept of mind. Mind imagines all these things, and that's why the motion appears to be solid. Once the solidity appears, space appears. Space appears, time appears. So again, by thinking of the time, the desire that you should have in meditation is to reach the origin of time and origin of space. That's where the whole thing flew. That's when the Brahma says, let there be light. Before that was darkness, but it was no dark. Dark of meaning compared to the lightness, but the energy was always there. Brahma was all-time powerful. He could do anything, but this is what he decided. So that's when say, or let there be light. And in Christianity, they said the same. And then there was light. There was a creation like that, right?
Isn't the space and the matter is a continuum of a spectrum?
It is, yes, of course. Yeah, that's what it is. So space, again, true space, if you really believe a vacuum, no. But the space with consciousness, yes. Because without consciousness, nothing can be created, right? So all the matter that you see, again, is a creation of consciousness, right? So consciousness makes this matter exist and function and sustain and destroy and everything. So space alone, if you look at it as a dead space, it's not. But that space is within you, and once you realize it's not a dead space anymore. We may think that, okay, this is all there is, but it's all consciousness. Even in the empty space that we think is an empty space is full of consciousness. There is not an inch or a square or a millimeter or a micromillimeter where the consciousness is not there. It's always there, right? So the purpose is to reach to the source of time and space. And that should be a great feeling to reach there. So that itself should give us an incentive to go deeper and deeper, right? It's like, again, going back to the same example of the dream. I create characters. I separate them by the space. I give them incentive to do things, whatever they do in my dream. But at the end, they're all merged back. And did they exist? Not really. It was all my mind's creation, imagination. The same way, this is just imagination of the consciousness. And we are the consciousness. Is our, again, another phase of imagination is the world. Versus one set of imagination created the dreams. Another set of imagination is, again, frame of mind. So,
sometimes it's so confusing. What's the truth?
exactly. You saw the movie, Inception?
Fascinating
movie.
That's the truth. That's the truth, Nilesh bhai. That's the real truth. What we think truth is not truth, and that's what is the really our research. We have been struggling for all things which we think is truth.
And at the end, the top is still spinning. So even after knowing all these things that we came back to reality, even that was a dream. That was the beautiful part, right?
The end was really
good.
The movie hits after you watched it, then it hit me after.
Yeah, you have to see it to the I know.
You have to watch it times.
You have to watch it times to understand.
To make it understand, yeah,
My
absolutely.
son gave me a challenge that if you really understand, I'll give you $1,000.
He was right.
I'm telling you.
Even I would not have gotten it. Actually, one of the guy in the audience said, "Oh my God, that everybody got it." Nobody had gotten it even
After
then.
it's over, then you
Right.
understand.
It's like in the English movies, like when in the India, like English movies, you go there, then there are people laugh 3 times. First time people laugh, they really understand the English. The second time people laugh because everybody else laughed. And the third time people laugh on the people who laughed the second time. So that's how 3 sets of laughter come, right? Should we hold off then, I guess? Right?
What time is
It's,
I don't know.
it? Okay, yeah, 9:30. Otherwise, then we will have to extend the other session. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's it for today then.